All right, dude. We are back for part two. We just changed clothes. Same.
Change clothes. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool, man. But yeah, so we kind of wrapped up talking about, running, sailing, a gym, basically getting it off the ground. So I kind of want to get into some of the big changes that have gone on as we've scaled this thing, right? And one of the big ones I think is you transitioning out of coaching. Obviously, huge change. Like that was your bread and butter. That's what made you money. That's what made this whole thing work. So to suddenly just be like, yeah, everything that got me here, I'm doing the opposite of that. It's kind of crazy, right? So what made you want to step away from coaching?
It honestly wasn't a want. It was more of a realization that it had to happen.
Someone in the gym just dropped a lot of stuff.
It's probably toilet paper.
Yep.
From above this room. Yeah, it had to happen. What happened was I had a client who I really enjoyed working with, and I thought we had a really good relationship, and they just quit out of nowhere. And I was like, well, that's weird. And they gave me kind of this BS response as to why.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple weeks later, I figured out why, and what they were telling people was, oh yeah, Zach's not giving me X amount of attention, and the programming is this, and they had a lot of complaints. And I sort of had to look myself in the mirror and say, there's some validity here.
Yeah.
My focus was going towards the gym and the business and growing it and bringing out coaches and team. And so I had to decide to offload because I knew that I wasn't giving the clients the attention they deserved and in fact that they were paying for.
Right.
And so that was a really, really big one for me. It's a huge gut check, huge ego check.
Just in terms of you can't do everything, or
yeah, you can't do everything. Yeah, you can't do everything, and knowing so one of the things I teach business owners now is work every minute you work in your business, you can't work on your business, and so every moment you're in the trenches, actually doing the product and doing the thing, you can't focus on growing it, scaling it, right? The back end stuff that people don't see, the work on the back end, and so if I'm on the floor coaching all the time, working with clients and shoot coach, all those things that we do now, that the coaches do. I'm not doing our books and accounting. I'm not planning for our next meet. I'm not planning for next year's budget and financials, things like that, looking at new spaces to take over. It's a lot of time. You will say there's so much time in the day, but it's also mental capacity too. Obviously, you're a coach, you know what it's like getting through all your notifications, all of your responses. Sometimes you don't have anything left to pour from your cup.
Yeah.
So it was this realization that to elevate to the next level, whatever that may be in my mind at the time, I had to free up space in my brain, in my day-to-day, and give clients also the experience that they deserve. And it was actually really well received with a lot of my clients. I was nervous, but a lot of them felt, I think they knew it was coming because they saw the direction we were going. They were all about it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I remember that being a pretty crazy moment. But looking back, like you said, it makes sense, right? You can grow the business a lot more. In the moment, though, again, just that idea of doing kind of the opposite of what got you here, in the moment, were you so sure of that decision, or was it still very rocky?
Again, it felt super necessary.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I didn't compute at the time, or looking back, I should have been more on this, would be when you are doing the service as the owner, I don't cost the business any money. So that was a big thing. It's okay, I had a roster of 68 clients, so I was generating a business, let's say, maybe $12,000 of revenue, a significant chunk of the time. So maybe a third of our total revenue came from my service that I was providing within.
Right.
Of course, I'm not paying myself that money. I'm wanting to go to the business, keep growing. So as I offload clients, the margin goes from 100% profit margin on each client to it gets reduced, right? You're not going to pay a coach to run their training and stuff. So that was probably a thing that I realized after I had already done it, but then realizing, I cut down our profitability because I'm not directly trading time for money within my own business anymore. That was a little bit tough. It has taken an adjustment to, and I'll add on to that, is as we've grown and added on roles within the company that aren't directly correlating to income coming in. So, there's things that we have to do that you do, that we have other team members do, that it's not sales, it's not coaching, it's admin stuff.
Yeah.
Well, admin stuff doesn't, make a business money. It does in retrospect, in a big picture sense.
Yeah.
But it's not that person's bringing in any revenue. And so that's a big thing that I talk with a lot of gym owners on is this idea that, when you're doing it all yourself, like all of it's like, it's like fake. It's like a fake business in a sense. Until you start to hire people out and then actually have like margins and numbers that work based on having other service providers. That's really important. So that was a huge growth stage for me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. What about like the reaction from other coaches, from clients? Because like I remember I was super worried about that. Like to me, that was a giant change, right? Because it's still, I think your point, it was, SoCal was a very kind of consistent thing. It was what it was, and you were looking for the next level. But I think to a lot of us, it was still like, holy shit, powerlifting coaching is a real job. I mean, we're all following Zach's footsteps. Like you were the architect at that point. It wasn't just you as like kind of managing everyone. It was, okay, Zach started doing this. Now we start doing this. And it was following your footsteps.
Yeah.
So I remember being really scared, maybe is not the best word, but very, just apprehensive. Like, damn, this is a huge change. There's no blueprint for me to follow anymore. And I know I voiced some of that, and I hopefully have since voiced the realization that it was a good thing. But what do you kind of remember about the reaction from everyone else that time?
Yeah, I think that, like, looking back, I don't really remember anything about any sort of reactions on the coaches side, the staff side, anything like that. I mean, I remember for me, it was more like, this also provides more income opportunities to my team. So like I flipped it in my mind, is all positive. I'm like, oh, I'm giving these people, I'm offloading all these clients. Like everyone gets to make so much more money. They get to have many more clients and be able to feed my team.
Yeah, I reaction flipped once that next paycheck hit.
Yeah, of course, right? Like it's, oh, okay. And so all of a sudden it's like you're getting, if you offload 60 clients, like 60 leads came in and all signed up.
Yeah.
And so on your guys' end, I think once that realization probably hit, it was a healthy thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I don't really remember any sort of repercussions in the moment, like any sort of anxiety or anything like that, just because I knew deep down that like this was the next step. I was all in.
Yeah, and it worked out. I think, all these hiccups, or not hiccups, but like almost forks in the road, or it's kind of like, damn, this is a big turning point. And then same thing when I started offloading clients, then I'm being a client a couple of years at this point, But those transitions to like admin, again, that idea of this doesn't directly make the business money. How does this work? I think having talked to, other gym owners and stuff, a lot of people get stuck in that stage.
Yeah.
Where it's just hard to see the big picture if there's not an immediate return.
Yeah. If you think about any sort of bigger company, like there are rules. Like I think about, my mom was an HR person.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't selling a service for a company. I mean, she was working within a company, keeping them in compliance. Things that are necessary as you grow. Like you need when you architect a business, like there's going to be points in which you have your product where you're selling and you're serving, but at the same time, like how does it all stay going? There's going to be people within the business that have to do the things that are, let's say, on the front end, on the sales side or service side, and so it's that realization of those roles do need to exist. And it all goes back to pricing, like making sure that we price competitively so that we can afford to pay people to run the roles, that the not flashy things that people don't see are just as equally, if not more important than the stuff that people do see.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember you bringing up the idea of like the CEO of Apple isn't out there selling iPhones in the Apple Store, right?
Oh.
And obviously, like, duh. But I think a lot of gyms especially get stuck in that we are a gym. Not we are a business. We're a gym business, right? And I think that one gets
gym first, business second. When you're business first, gym second, you can create a cooler gym because you generate more revenue that allows you to do cooler things.
Yep. So the next kind of big transition point, I think, for me was initially it's you transition away from coaching, right? And then transition to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Big jump, right? And as much as we want to probably separate, outside the gym from business stuff, I think that is a big jump, right? Stepping into a new sport, but still, being so involved here and being so ingrained in the culture here, the culture that you built. So initially, what made you want to jump into jiu-jitsu?
Oh, very fast. That's a great question. So for those watching, I was scarred here. I had my left knee reconstructed. I used to dislocate my kneecap playing sports growing up. It happened like 8 times my junior year of high school playing football. Like literally 8 times. I'd go out I'd go back in, and then I'd go back in and keep playing. Because it got to the point where once you just get a joint, it just keeps happening. And then like every time it gets less painful, but it's more likely it'll happen again. And also you get, joint degradation and stuff. But I was like 17. I'm like, you're invincible. You can't get hurt.
Yeah.
So I just kept going. Well, over time, through obviously the knee was already messed up. Then I got into powerlifting more competitively, training squats. That knee was always bothering me. I'd layer, sleeve on 2 sleeves, icy hot, Advil, and then just got to the point where I was getting nerve pain shooting down the leg. So like after my last full power meet was USAPL Nationals in 2017. I think I placed like 8th, just not bad. And I didn't change my squat up until that meet like at all because I couldn't anymore. But that was like the last meet I signed up for. So after that, I was just doing like literally upper body training with some deadlifting and stuff. And then was trying to find a doctor to fix the knee. The problem was it was arthritis, right? So that's, it's not an easy fix. It's not like just a surgery. It's quick. No. And I was too young for a knee replacement. So I did they gave me knee surgery. It's a tibial osteotomy, an homologous cartilage transfer, MPFL reconstruction. And that was pretty much the gist. For all of those words up, you totally can. And all in all, it's really like a biologic reconstruction. I got back into training a bit, but kind of found out pretty quick that the knee, with all the scar tissue, like I wasn't able to, my knees go to different like spots as I squat down. Yeah. So it's creating hip problems and back problems. And I just decided that like at this point in time, if I'm not going to be able to be competitive and train like at that level, that I'm okay moving on from competing in powerlifting. I didn't want to be like a push-pull guy.
Yeah.
The old guy, I used to, back in my day, I used to do this. Like, I didn't want to be that. I despise that. So then I got into a mode of, okay, I need to find at least a hobby to keep me locked in. So I love that I can maybe do competitively too. That I love the competitive aspect. But competing wasn't on the forefront. It was more so just like a hobby. I was looking at like mountain biking, yoga, we're gonna jiu-jitsu, just ways to like even just lose weight. I was a little fluffy. Used to compete at 105 kilos, 231. Now I was like a fluffy-ish 231. I was jacked and strong, but like I wanted to lose weight. I didn't need to be that big anymore.
Yeah.
And so there was a spot called One Jiu-Jitsu that was literally down the street in the same complex that we're in today. And I gave it a go, and I fell in love with it. And then I have an all or nothing personality. So once I do jiu-jitsu is the drug, I just want to do it over and over again. It was super fun.
Yeah.
So that transition's been one that's been super fruitful. It's almost 4 years. Literally September 2019 was when I started. After I did that do one push-pull meet in September 2019, I Metroflex. Yeah. And then I moved to jiu-jitsu, and I'm purple belt now. I've been competing for a while. For me, it's been really, really great. It's opened my eyes to a lot of things. First of all, number one is like, powerlifting's not forever always. Like, I think it's really important that we're well-rounded in a lot of different ways. And so I think in powerlifting, I felt like I had this like physical prowess that doing like a sport like jiu-jitsu, you realize you show up and like a little guy beats you, like, okay, maybe I'm not a beast. Yeah. It's been really an ego buster in every sense of the way, getting beat up by little people, different levels, learning lessons on the mats, meeting new people, new friends. Probably a lot of the, hopefully the same feelings good members get when they come in here for the first time. It's meet new people, community, try a new sport. It was that having that literally white belt like mentality and realization once more, being new at something, was just a huge eye opener for me. And one of the other things that I actually talked to my therapist about this even before starting off in jiu-jitsu was like, I suck at trying new things. So I don't like to be bad at stuff.
Yeah. That's why you put fantasy football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why Alex always beats me at fantasy football. No, he sucked last year too.
I did.
Yeah. And so it took me a while to get started because I was so afraid to be new at something, in powerlifting. Like I knew I was strong, I knew I was good, and did around the block a bit. And so I was so scared of trying something new. And I wish I would have started jiu-jitsu earlier, and I didn't, and timing all worked out. But that was starting something new and being fresh and not being the expert in the room at that time in my life is probably really healthy for my development long-term as a person, business owner in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that jiu-jitsu to powerlifting connection is definitely strong. It seems to be a pretty common funnel.
All washed up with
yeah. What do you think about it? About jiu-jitsu is it though that draws in so many powerlifters?
That's a great question. So I think that jiu-jitsu as a whole is growing. Being around my jiu-jitsu school for the last 4 years, I've seen them grow just like, we have and stuff. Powerlifting's also growing a lot.
Yeah.
So I think jiu-jitsu is a sport that intrigues a lot of people because it's obviously active. It's martial arts. UFC's been growing a lot. We're a huge UFC guy.
Yeah.
So it's more prevalent, more accepted, martial arts. It's also a martial art that's actually like usable, not like Taekwondo. Sorry if you're big into Taekwondo.
Bro, I was a second-degree black belt, 12 years old.
That's the problem. Exactly. In jiu-jitsu, it takes 10 years of consistent training to get your black belt. It's right, legit stuff. And so I think what's happening is just people in general are gravitating to jiu-jitsu. High-level lifters who do get hurt because, if you're high level, you're pushing things in a lot of different ways in training and extracurricular stuff. Like it happens. And you do have a career in powerlifting, just like anyone has a career in any sport if you're high level. So jiu-jitsu is a sport where even with my reconstructed knee and like I tore my patella tendon in December, I've come back. You can cater the game. It's not a one-dimensional game. Whereas powerlifting, it's you squat, you bench, you deadlift. This is how the technique works. Yeah, there you go.
Right.
And you can move your stances out and get to stuff, but it's not like you can be like, oh, I now do I bench with this bar instead because I can put my hands like this because it doesn't hurt my wrists or whatever it is.
Right.
Like you're stuck in this one plane, with these set of rules. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, obviously there's still rules and stuff, but like, if I tear my knee and I'm coming back and rehabbing, well, I'll just pull guard and start with the ground. I'll play a version of the game that my body allows me to.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with a lot of older guys in jiu-jitsu who have been hurt over the years and are only able to do certain things. They avoid positions that their body can no longer do. So you can cater it to what your body's able to do. And so I think my thing that I've realized is like, I could do this forever because unless it's like something like a neck injury or something where it's like really essential on your body, you can almost just like maneuver your game around what you're able to do, how healthy you are in the moment. And so I think powerlifters, given that jiu-jitsu is growing, given that it's, it's ever evolving and like you also will never learn all the moves, there's always more to learn. And you can work around your injuries and stuff like that and still feel that sense of achievement and have that feeling of competing again. I think those are all reasons powerlifters have gravitated towards it.
Like you mentioned, right? It's kind of it's following the injury curve, right? Like your career arc is pretty typical, right? Football, where it's kind of up to someone else as well, right? A lot of people exploding, you want more explosive plays, movements. See a lot of people tearing ACL in football, get into powerlifting, and some get to stay there for a while, right? But then powerlifting, yeah, it's up to you. There's no more kind of explosive movement, but you're still stuck to these rules. And then jiu-jitsu is a little more free flowing.
Yeah, and my powerlifting career like should have been a lot longer. I take out like the knee stuff. Like I probably would maybe even still be in the game. Like I'm 26 now. That would be like 10 years to the day would be like 10 years of consistent competing if I were still in it, which 10 years for like competing life cycle, 10 to 15 is probably like higher level. Like that's probably where you end up, and then you still, like I still lift, it's still part of my life. But it should have been different. It probably, even with the knee stuff, it would have been if I had a coach. If I had a coach that was willing to maybe hold me back a little bit more, educate me on the do's and don'ts a little bit more. I had coaches, but I was also really a stubborn lifter, young lifter, always pushing things, going heavier than I should have, doing more volume than I probably should have. But no one was like holding me back, but I own that as true.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's cool that you've kind of found something that's still output for you, both physical and creative. And that's the next thing I want to touch on. I think a lot of lifters get stuck in, I can only do powerlifting, and it's this double-edged sword that I struggle to communicate with, because I get new clients who've been training for 6 months. They get this false confidence thinking they're cool, got it, check powerlifting off the bucket list. I'm still going to lift, and also I just started doing jiu-jitsu, and also I go mountain biking on the weekends, and it's like, like you said, your career was shorter than it should have been, but if you're trying to have a powerlifting career, yeah, there is something to be said about having a powerlifting career. NFL players are playing basketball in the off-season, but they're not playing every single day, right? They're not doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They're playing football. So if your goal is to get better at powerlifting, get better at powerlifting. But then once you've started to either max out your potential, get a little bored with training, or decide, hey, my actual competing isn't my livelihood, there's nothing wrong with branching out. And I think a lot of lifters get stuck in that, me included. I'm still here because I feel like there's still more I want to do in powerlifting. But I think I've always been very averse to getting out of it because this is my livelihood. How am I going to tell a client, hey, focus on lifting if I'm not focused myself? Has always been a big fear. And seeing you, still be ingrained in the culture of SoCal, still taking the gym to the next level, what seems like weekly at this point, but be able to branch out and do other things has kind of, reset that worldview a little bit of like, no, it's okay. People, you can still say, oh, I used to lift this, or, oh, I understand it and prove it through knowledge, through it, doing it for a long time, rather than in the moment, I'm at the strongest I've ever said, right?
Kind of multifaceted question. I think number one, first of all, no NFL coaches still play football.
Right.
Right. It's no NFL, no basketball coach, and NBA coach still play basketball professionally.
Yeah.
It's very normal for coaches in sport to not do the sport anymore because, they lived their heyday and they've moved on to golf or something that's lesser active. And so I think being okay with listening to your body and allowing yourself to move in and sunset and move into the next chapter, I think is really important. Cool part about powerlifting is, strength training in general, resistance training, it can be done forever. At what scale kind of depends on where you're at with your life and your body and what you're able to do. Mm-hmm. We do hit a peak. Natural lifters obviously hit a certain peak, enhanced, whatnot, same thing. It's like everyone, it's a bell curve and, you curve. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to compete forever. It's just, probably not, or you're not at least going to be able to compete forever, but you're not going to get stronger forever.
Linear progression is going to max out at some point.
Exactly. So I think that being okay with that is fine, and then letting the track record speak for itself. I used to be really caught up when I first started coaching and opened the gym. One of my biggest insecurities was I was 20, 21-ish, like selling, coaching and whatnot. I felt like I had to be, that being strong was like all I had. Of course, if I was smart enough and knew what I was doing enough to get people stronger, but like that was my my crutch was like, oh, well, I'm strong. I look the part that they're going to trust me. But once you build enough confidence, you realize that stuff, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you speak with the confidence and, like, you let in the action show and you get someone stronger, it doesn't matter what you look like to a degree and things like that. Of course, like, I believe we should all stay in shape and train in some way. But, yeah, ultimately, like, if someone isn't competing regularly because they're coaching and they've moved on to maybe next chapter, I think that's totally fine. And, yeah, the other thing is, branching out more. I wish during powerlifting that I would have tried, rock climbing or tried other things that were powerlifting so that I could be more multifaceted. I wish I would have done more aerobic work, to build my work capacity, maybe been healthier, lighter, leaner, whatever it is. I think that is really important to have other things that you're doing, especially if you're not, there's probably 10 or 20 people, no, say either like 5 or 10 people that powerlifting actually pays them. And then, maybe like 50 more people that social media powerlifting pays them.
Right.
But like the rest, powerlifting's not paying your bills. It's this passion you have in the sport that you do, which is awesome. Just like jiu-jitsu isn't paying my bills. I still compete at a high level. But like I do other stuff. Like I'll not train and go wakeboarding instead or snowboarding and doing other things. And if I get injured, like that's on me. I won't be able to train jiu-jitsu or the past powerlifting. But it's going to keep you in the game longer because you're able to try new things. You're going to be more multifaceted, multidimensional. And I think that's really important for longevity in the sport. You and I both have seen so many people come and go over the handful of years we've been together. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think the people that stay in it the longest are willing to take the breaks and have more balance because it gives them a lot of point. And something that you touched on recently too was actual like longevity in the sport is like what advanced means. Well, how many years is advanced really based on like
12 plus.
12 plus. So no one's thinking like that, especially if they're young. And so someone that gets to 12 plus, like they need to be doing more than just powerlifting. They need to be taking a real off season, and really letting their body heal, trying other things, staying fresh, and being okay with taking breaks. Because when you try to compact it down into the short timeline is when we do get injuries, and when we're rushing progress is when we do get hurt and we do fall off or burn out, and that's when the bad stuff happens.
Looking at the research, the amount of training required to maintain muscle mass is so much smaller than the amount required to build it. So those more advanced athletes actually can take that time off, or maybe just reduce, right? Maybe if you're training 5 days a week of barbell movements, it's 2 days of barbell, 1 accessory day for a little bit in the off season, and you can actually kind of relax.
I lift 3-ish days a week. Literally. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I lift. Usually it's 4 movements, and I might throw in a couple extra sets of curls here and there. I'm still jacked. I don't like track. I do track progress like on my program and stuff, but like I'll push hard to the gym. My lifting is to support my jiu-jitsu and maintain a certain amount of muscle mass. Maintenance is very easy. It's so easy. I mean, lifting and like having muscle mass is it's almost like having stocks that pay you dividends.
Yeah.
Like once you build your portfolio to a certain extent, once you build your muscle mass to a certain extent, it's pretty easy to get those dividends. You just have to give it just enough, and it's going to stay with you. And so like something for me is like, I'm not going to get better at jiu-jitsu by lifting more. Like I'm not going to lose someone else strong enough or jacked enough or whatever it is. It's going to be because I'm not technical or good at jiu-jitsu enough, or I'm not aerobically in shape enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's so important, you know, people realizing how much we really do need to either gain or maintain what that looks like.
The last kind of thing I wanted to touch on in the kind of coaching sphere, you mentioned something similar. You said no current NFL coach still plays football. Even more than that, a majority of NFL coaches were good football players, right? Because they then understood what it takes to be good. If you're good at something, it's very easy to just coast, right? On genetics, on skill, whatever it is, and just kind of take what's there. In my experience, very few really good lifters are good coaches because they didn't have to figure things out. It's, well, I squat this way, I deadlift this way, everyone should, because this has always worked for me, right? I do this much volume, it's always worked for me. And there's no hunger to learn more. I think you've kind of seen that too throughout the sport. For you getting into it and eventually now looking at jiu-jitsu and everything, like, I know you came in and were pretty strong, but you weren't super gifted right off the bat. I know you had this massive hunger to learn. Where did that kind of come from?
Yeah. So growing up, I was overweight and I wasn't a gifted athlete. Like when you were at a line to like pick your team, right? And there was 2 team captains. I was one of the last ones, except for my boy Josh. Shout out Josh, is on. He'd always pick game. So I was good at running 3 people. But, and so I was never gifted. So for me, the first time that I was actually decent at something, I literally remember being 13. Some of my friends, I got held back in kindergarten. Some of my friends, I kept in touch with people that were a grade ahead. Yeah. So when I was going into 8th grade, some of my friends were going in 9th grade, and they were joining football, learning how to bench press. We were in my buddy Ethan's garage bench pressing, and I forget what I hit, but I benched more than all of them, and I was younger. Yeah. And it gives us a significant amount more. I think it was, it might have been like 135, 155. 14-year-old, didn't really bench press ever. And so that was a realization. Hold on, I'm good at something active, like physical. Yeah. So lifting was like the first thing that I was at least slightly above average on. And of course, as humans, like we are attracted to things that we're good at. And so I stuck with it and was able to push it further. As far as the coaching side goes, though, yeah, like one of the things that I struggled with the most was like, because of my knee issues, the squat, coaching the squat. Doing the squat myself. I got so good at coaching the squat because I had to troubleshoot my squats so many times to not have knee pain, to make it work with my hips, I don't have great squat, like the levers. And so being able, having to like be finicky with all of these variables made me really good at coaching the squat. Whereas the bench press, I was good at the bench. I didn't really, coaching it is kind of like, oh, yeah, do it this way, pull your shoulders back and have this, do this arch thing. And like, that was kind of it. Whereas the squat, I feel like I was super tactical with my coaching and technical. Yeah. And so I think that, like you said, it is not always the best athletes never make the best coaches because things come naturally. And so you haven't had to do the, no pun intended, heavy lifting of like having to figure out what's wrong. How do I work this? Because if you have someone who's genetically just super gifted, like they're just going to be able, if it's in football, they're going to be able to run the route. And, if it's in the powerlifting, like, yeah, just squat up and down, like you're good, right? And we've seen that. I've seen that with a bunch of high-level people that I've been around in the industry, and that's what sucks is like those people usually have the Instagram followers, they get the clients and stuff. But ultimately, we've seen this so many times. Then their clients get hurt and come to us. But so many, yeah. Ultimately, it's the best coaches are going to come from a background where they've had to fight tooth and nail to make progress and get better. Yeah, and then. From there, it's also, there's so many more things with coaching, right? It's like learning how to lead, learning how to communicate, athlete psychology, so many other variables that play more than just having to figure yourself out and then being, oh, then I can coach people. There's so much more. But going through all of that yourself is really important. And so, yeah, that was something like I've had to deal with. Where in jiu-jitsu, it's been interesting because it's actually was the opposite. A lot of people who get into jiu-jitsu with no sport background are not athletic. And so like they're learning all these techniques and stuff, but then I just like blow through whatever they do because I have the athleticism. Dr. Mike Israel actually told me, this was literally like 3.5 years ago. He's like, I was talking to him at one of my buddy Chad's jiu-jitsu matches. And he's like, oh, he started jiu-jitsu, awesome. He's like, I was explaining how it's difficult, like learning how to use my body and stuff and not use strength and things. He's like, dude, you're a V8, you have a V8 engine, but you're not like a race car driver yet. You just wanted to drive. These people who are beating you, they're a lot smaller. To like, they're driving their like V4s and stuff, but they're like race car drivers. They don't have time. Once you figure out how to use your body and build the technique over the years, it's gonna be over. And that's kind of what's happened with me is like I've started to catch up. Like my strength has always been here, and my technique has started to catch up, and I've progressed there so much that now I can use the strength to really like, do a lot of cool things on the mats and make progress and win tournaments and things like that. So that's been really cool, even just for anyone thinking about switching and moving on to jiu-jitsu or trying it out. Like if you are comfortable more with an athletic background, powerlifting background, you have, it took 10 years to build this muscle or whatever. So like, it's so much easier to then take that and apply it to other things too. And even just in life, like if you have more muscle mass, as you get older, things are going to be easier. Yeah. It's so good for you to train and resistance train. Whereas like anyone can learn technique, right? But it takes dedication, like to like stay on and build muscle mass.
There's a lot of people who, want to get into jiu-jitsu but are ready to get out of the game with powerlifting completely. We'll get Sebastian in here who really kind of gets into the depths in combat sports strength conditioning. We'll get Juan who can get real in-depth of powerlifting conditioning. But as someone who, has kind of taken the jump, how sustainable do you think it is to do a little bit of both and to find that balance?
So I think it can be done. But first of all, whenever you're a dual sport athlete, you have to acknowledge that you're never going to be the best at one.
Yep.
So like hybrid athletes, like when I think hybrid, I think like marathon runner. I saw a post the other day. Someone guys tried to hit the best hybrid athlete. He's running marathons, half marathons, and swimming, and he squats 500 pounds. And like that's sick. That's fucking awesome. But like he's probably never going to squat 700 pounds because he'd need to add size. So then he's never going to run a marathon because he's too big and his body's going to break down. So number one is just accepting like, hey, if you have two goals that are pushing in opposite energy systems and directions, like that's cool, like no worries. So acknowledging that. I think then number two, figuring out where your capacity is. When I started training jiu-jitsu, I was going 2 to 3 days a week, and I was still lifting 5 days a week, 5 to 6, with the 6 being like an easier day. Obviously, as my interest peaked towards jiu-jitsu, I started to shift. Went down to 4 days of lifting, and then I increased jiu-jitsu to 4 or 5 days. To the point where then it got to I was lifting so much that when I go train jiu-jitsu, like my shoulders were already burnt out, my grips were cooked, and it was affecting my training. I wasn't able to like practice the techniques properly because I was so fatigued, so I was doing bad habits. Yep. And so that was ingrained in a lot of movement patterns, all that stuff. And so I think that the biggest thing is just understanding like where your work capacity is at. Starting off, so if you're already a powerlifter and you want to do jiu-jitsu, for example, if you have 4 sessions of powerlifting a week, you can't just add 3 sessions of jiu-jitsu on top of that. Like you probably have to take it down, like, okay, go to 3 sessions a week, try 2 jiu-jitsu. The other thing is as you train more in other disciplines like jiu-jitsu, other sports, with jiu-jitsu, you learn how to regulate your energy more. So like you come in, like in your white belt, you're new, I was just super spazzy, I was so tired and everything was like 100%. Because in powerlifting, like when we have a set of 3 on squat, like it's everything you've got. So you bring that mentality. Every movement I make, I have to bring 100%. Yeah. It doesn't work for sports where you're like, you're doing a match for 5 or 6 minutes. And so I would get so tired, and then I started to realize, okay, like I can realize in the match like where I could rest. So that was a big realization, understanding the where I could rest and how to regulate the energy more. Mm-hmm. And then from there, just scaling forward or backward based on what you feel like you can handle. If you're getting beat up and your elbow is hurt, you're starting to get achy, find out where you can pull from. Again, if you enjoy one over the other more, add the session of what you enjoy and take out what you don't. Like we spoke about earlier, maintenance of muscle mass is pretty easy.
Yep.
Maintenance of technique with jiu-jitsu, I think, is pretty ingrained as well. Like if you bring down your training days, I think you're still going to be just as technical. And so as long as you stay, the biggest thing is just consistency in both realms.
Yep.
If you stay consistent, I think that's the best bet. But yeah, if you're going to start out, it's just going to be a start somewhere, but you can't just add it on top of it. Definitely something you're going to have to pull back, or else you could run into some nagging pains and stuff.
We see people kind of find a balance, and as we talked about, maybe powerlifting isn't the be all end all for everyone. It's probably not going to pay your bills for most people. So finding that balance is really cool to see. To kind of wrap everything up here, I want to talk about, so we've talked about today, right? This thing started with you coaching your own clients, and that turned into a powerlifting gym. Now you're not coaching, you're not powerlifting, but I would still say you're very ingrained in the culture.
Lost? No.
But very ingrained in the culture. You're not, the SoCal Instagram is a lot of my face at this point. The client sales doesn't include you. The actual, coaching doesn't include you. But I would still say almost every single member of this gym knows you. What do you do to make sure that culture doesn't change, to make sure you still have those relationships with clients, to make sure that, you're still a part of this whole thing and don't pull yourself out of it too far? Because I think you do a good job of it.
Great question. Thank you for the compliment. I think that I could have done better, actually. So one of my biggest realizations was as soon as I let go of the sales role, which is when I stopped really actually learning everyone's names. In sales, it's so easy. Face, name. I have a good memory. Yours bad.
Yeah.
But I'm really good at remembering names and faces.
I'll remember the life story. The name is...
Yeah. You're like the guy, the guy that did the underwater, the guy that they mom named all seals.
Yeah.
And his mom works at the Trader Joe's and his dad's over here. But
his name is gone.
Name's gone. So for me, as I'll face his names, once I gave up the sales role, really the only way I'd meet people is like going up to randos that I haven't met yet in the gym, being, hey, I'm Zach, and I've always kind of felt weird doing that. Like, I don't want it to ever be like the splits of, hey, I'm the over. It's more, I always want to be helpful. I want to be a familiar face. So I've struggled with that. We've talked about this. First of all, I wish I would have held on to more goals longer. I think my philosophy at the time was, I delegate, open up room to then handle growth. And in the first few years, we were doubling, tripling revenue every year. It's insane. And of course, that's not sustainable. Just like anything, doing those kind of numbers, it's just not, right? It does slow down. I didn't state when the slowdown would occur. Obviously, COVID also threw our numbers all wumbo jumbo. And so I offloaded quite a bit thinking, it's going to keep growing. And we level off more and continue to grow 20% year over year. It's still enough. But getting out of the day-to-day rules, I wish I would have held on a little longer because I think it would have kept me ingrained more into the community. So I still have that charisma. A lot of the people who've been here forever still, of course, know me. I still introduce myself. I'm on all the, the promo stuff and the email. When we do the email sequences, I'm one of the staff.
Yeah.
But that has been hard. Finding my own role in my own business is something I could talk about for a long time. It's difficult knowing where I'm supposed to be. I think I've realized that the business is obviously as good as our team, but it's also as good as I am as well. It's really important for me to keep growing and learning. And at this level, seeking out mentors, business groups, seminars, lectures, finding ways in which I can grow as a business owner, bring creative ideas to the table, because that's my role. It's guiding the ship, the vision, pointing the direction we're going to push, and then letting everyone fucking row. It's someone's got to call those shots and go that direction, because if we're not trying to grow, I think, we die, right? And that's kind of how I believe. So it's been tough. It's something I still deal with every day. I think it's one of my greatest, insecurities is feeling as though I'm not in the trenches enough, but then also knowing that the more I'm in the trenches, the less I'm working on our business. And just being okay with not being the guy, with you being on the IG, it's awesome. And then, of course, we want to integrate other coaches and stuff onto the social media platforms and stuff. But I've always said it's important that the owner, I've told you this, the owner should never be the guy, because then he's everything. And then it's forever just a him show. I never wanted to be a me show. So powerlifting for me needed to always stand on its own 2 feet. And so many gyms and businesses are so owner-based and focused that they can never stand on their own 2 feet. So and that's always been a goal of mine, is to let it be its own living, breathing thing.
It's been huge from the jump, man. If this place was, Zach's Gym or Bartell's Barbells, or what was it, Bartell's Barbarians back there, right?
Hey, yeah.
If this was that and then you stop competing, the gym's over, right? More or less, the strength of the brand's identity is gone. So that's been huge. But then I think, like you said, you've still done a good job kind of integrating it and finding that balance. But you pulling back in certain ways used to be something scary. As I said before, you were the blueprint that we were all following. And I think you giving us the space to now grow on our own. Sebastian is doing combat sports training stuff that neither of us have ever touched, right? We're jumping into new sales roles, figuring out new sales procedures for the first time on our own now. The social media used to be you and I making dumb memes on Snapchat and posting them, and now we're learning how to make things professional, right? It's given us the space to grow and therefore the space to build confidence, which has allowed the team to become a lot stronger. And I think it's been good. Now, seeing the space that I can grow and I can fill up the roles, ways I can improve or let the rest of the team improve, along with, every time you've taken a step back and come back with these new ideas or really new motivation to kind of grow the gym more. Every time you take a step back, I'm now excited, not scared. And so that's kind of what I want to highlight with you doing a good job. No, maybe you don't know every single person's name, but you're still very much ingrained. You know most people's name. Almost everyone knows you. Almost everyone has good things to say about you. And you're still creating, new business as well as new avenues for the staff to grow. I think that's the balance that you've managed to do.
I had a realization at SoCal 2.0 that the gym needed to be big enough to not only fit my dreams, but that to fit other people's dreams. Because if it's not, that's fine. But then, you're gonna leave you'd leave it a couple of years. The staff there'd be higher turnover because I'd realize their ability to grow is capped. And so as we grow, I always keep that in mind, is how many people's dreams can I fit it within this space, right? How can I architect this in a way where it is, it's an ample opportunity for everyone involved, or at least most people involved. I'm not saying that every staff member is going to be here forever. When they decide it's time to move on, they're going to decide whatever. But ultimately, my goal here is to provide as much opportunity as possible to the people that work here. And it's not a Zach show. It's not all for me. For me, business needs to exist without me. If I were to just be off face of the earth tomorrow, I think we would function just fine. Someone would have to unlock my QuickBooks account and the bank accounts and figure out all that stuff, but it would get handled. Whereas there are other businesses where the owner is everything and it needs them, and I think that's just not a sustainable thing.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. So I'm glad that you see it that way, where the more the more consistent and solid the business is. Because the more it needs one guy, the worse. You're not hedging your bets. You're putting all eggs in one basket. You could lose that person tomorrow. I see that too with a key employee, for example. Obviously you're super important, but at the end of the day, you have a set of roles where if you decide that tomorrow you want to be an underwater basket weaver, and that's your passion, I will say, Alex, I will support you in your passion. I'll buy your baskets. But at the end of the day, someone would fulfill your roles. Yeah, would they be as good? Maybe not. But ultimately, there's just rules and responsibilities. So a good team, it's next man up, and that includes the guy at the top. It needs to be to where if I go down or whatever it is, I go down with I'm sick, whatever it is, and someone can step up and fulfill that role, or it doesn't need me. I'm not integral to the op, which I think is really important to understand, and took me a really long time to be able to articulate in this way, I guess. And so hopefully that's helpful.
To see that, and I think I've understood that for a little bit now, but it definitely wasn't immediate. But I think it's hopefully helpful for other, gym owners, people, aspiring coaches, people who just want to get into it, or honestly, even some of our clients got to hear where we're coming from. Some people walked in and saw the facility we're in now, and hopefully a couple months, somebody walk in and see our freaking dream gym, right? So to know that we started off renting out, I always say half of another gym, but let's be real, it was 10%.
Yeah.
And we've grown, so much since then. I think it's kind of cool to hear the evolution of the thought process along with it.
I definitely want to reflect more, and we have a really cool story. I think most small businesses do, and I think a lot of people just see what we're now. I look at our Instagram, shout out Jenna behind this camera, look at our Instagram now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the fact that we can make these high quality videos that I always saw these big companies do, and now we're that company. Now other people look at us and they're probably like, oh my gosh, look at that. It's like you just gotta start. And I never believed it would be this big. I think anyone can do stuff like this. Surround yourself with good people, always grow, learn, leave the ego at the door. And I think I love that we took the time here to share the story.
Cool. Appreciate you taking the time as well. We'll wrap it up, and be cool to kind of get some VR stuff in here. So, go.
Bada bing.